Breaking news. In Nancy Guthrie's disappearance, a source close to the investigation is telling NewsNation there were no signs of an assault inside of her home, that the inside of the house was actually clean.
Before we go through a single piece of evidence in this case, you need to know something about the woman at the center of it, not the victim, but her daughter. Savannah Guthrie did not become the face of the most watched morning show in America by accident. She earned a law degree from Harvard. She has reported live through wars, collapsed governments, and presidential scandals without ever losing her composure on camera. She is, by every professional measure, a woman who controls what she says, how she says it, and, perhaps most importantly, what she does not say at all. Since her 84-year-old mother Nancy vanished from her Tucson home on the night of January 31, 2026, Savannah has posted to Instagram. She has cried on camera. She has held her siblings' hands and begged a kidnapper to bring their mother home. What she has not done, not once, is speak publicly about the details that matter most. And in this video, we are going to talk about exactly what those details are and what her silence around each one of them actually means. Nancy Guthrie's last known evening as a free woman ended at her eldest daughter Annie's home in the Catalina foothills area of Tucson. It was a Saturday, January 31st. A regular family dinner. A game night. The kind of ordinary evening that no one marks on a calendar because there is no reason to think it will ever be the last one. Annie is the oldest of Nancy's 3 children. Savannah is the middle child. Cameron is the youngest. Annie is also the one who lives in Tucson, the one whose home Nancy visited regularly. The one whose kitchen table Nancy sat at that final Saturday evening. The one who knew her mother was coming. The one who knew when she would be leaving. The one who knew Nancy would be returning, alone, to a house 4 miles away, with a serious heart condition and no caregiver, to spend the night by herself. That is not a minor detail. That is operational information. That is the exact kind of precise, current, complete knowledge about a person's schedule and vulnerability that an abduction plan is built on. And law enforcement appears to have understood that from day one. Investigators did not canvass Annie's neighborhood once and move on. They came back. Multiple times. Multiple separate visits to the same streets, the same neighbors, asking about the same windows of time. Retired FBI Special Agent Jennifer Coffindaffer noted publicly that a properly executed canvass should not require repeat passes, unless something discovered the first time demanded a follow-up, or unless new evidence kept redirecting investigators to the same address. Law enforcement agencies under resource pressure do not return to the same residential block over and over without a specific evidentiary thread driving each visit. They were not running out of places to look. Evidence kept pulling them back to one location. Savannah Guthrie knows what it means when federal investigators return to her sister's street with the same questions on multiple separate occasions. She went to law school. She understands the geometry of that. And she has said nothing publicly about those repeated visits. Not a single word. That silence is the first detail. Here is something that mainstream coverage has largely glossed over. When the evening at Annie's house ended and it was time for Nancy to go home, Annie did not drive her. Annie was there. She lives in that house. The drive is 4 miles. Her mother is 84 years old with a significant heart condition. By any normal reading of how a family evening ends, the eldest daughter drives her elderly mother home. That is not what happened. Tommaso Cioni, Annie's husband, Nancy's son-in-law, was the one who put Nancy in a car, drove the 4 miles to her home, pulled into the garage, and walked her inside. The garage door opened at 9:48 p.m. It closed at 9:50 p.m. That was the last confirmed moment Nancy Guthrie was seen by anyone. There may be a perfectly innocent reason for this arrangement. Maybe Tommaso offered. Maybe Annie was tired. Maybe it simply worked out that way. Investigators are required to test that innocent explanation against the structural one. And the structural question is this: what does it accomplish to place Tommaso, and not Annie, as the last person with Nancy that night? It creates a chain of last contact that runs through him. It positions the person who drove the route, observed the layout of her home, and confirmed her transition from an evening with family to a night alone, as the son-in-law, not the daughter. If what happened 4 hours later was known to anyone in that household before it occurred, the decision about who drove Nancy home is not a small domestic detail. It is a deliberate architectural choice. In the early days of February 2026, independent journalist Ashley Banfield cited a law enforcement source reporting that a vehicle connected to Annie and Tommaso's household had been towed and taken into evidence. The Pima County Sheriff's Department subsequently issued a statement. They described the Guthrie family as victims, not suspects. The language was definitive. The car was still not returned. 6 weeks after it was seized, that vehicle remained in law enforcement custody. A former SWAT commander publicly asked why. The family had been formally cleared. So why does a cleared family still not have their car? Sheriff Nanos answered part of that question in a People magazine interview, describing the full scope of what investigators did. He said they took phones, computers, processed vehicles, and processed homes. The word he used was processed, which, in a forensic context, means subjected to a full investigative workflow. GPS history. Cell tower proximity data. Movement logs. Trace evidence. Any physical material that could place a person or an object somewhere specific at a specific time. When a device is processed and returned, that means the analysis concluded and yielded what it needed. When a vehicle is processed and not returned after 6 weeks from a family already cleared as suspects, that means something in that car or in the data it produced is still alive and an active investigative thread. Something in there has not yet served its purpose in the case. On February 4, 2026, 3 days after Nancy was reported missing, TMZ obtained footage of law enforcement arriving at Annie and Tommaso's home. One of the agents entering the property was wearing a shirt that carried 4 letters, ICAC. ICAC stands for Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, a federally coordinated program whose agents specialize in technology-facilitated exploitation, encrypted digital communications, and the extraction of data from devices their owners never intended anyone else to read. That agent was also carrying what analysts identified as a Celebrite device, a piece of forensic hardware used to get inside locked phones, tablets, and SIM cards. It bypasses encryption. It recovers deleted messages. It surfaces data the owner believed was permanently gone. You do not carry that device to a family's home unless you have a specific device in mind and a specific reason to believe it contains something the investigation needs. The Pima County Sheriff's Department responded carefully. They said the acronym on the shirt is not necessarily indicative of a particular crime associated with the case. They did not deny the agent was present. They did not deny the device was there. Former CIA officer Tracy Walder offered one explanation, that ICAC agents are trained in the digital architecture used to route ransom demands through encrypted channels. That explains the ransom angle. It does not explain the Celebrite. Celebrite is not for tracing emails. It is for extracting data from a specific physical device already in someone's possession. Someone at that house had a device. Investigators brought the right tool to open it. What was on it has not been made public. 6 weeks later, it still had not been disclosed. And the car still had not been returned. On March 2, 2026, 1 month and 1 day after Nancy was reported missing, Savannah Guthrie returned to Tucson. She stood at the community memorial outside her mother's home. Yellow flowers. Handwritten notes. Candles. She was not alone. She came with Annie and with Tommaso. Former prosecutor Nancy Grace, who attended the Variety True Crime Summit in Austin, watched footage from that memorial and drew a specific conclusion. She said watching Savannah put her arm around Tommaso convinced her that Savannah does not believe Tommaso is responsible for what happened to her mother. She held him close. She made that warmth visible in a moment she knew the world was watching. Nancy Grace's read is credible. But she stopped one step short of the more important question. If Savannah does not suspect Tommaso, who does she suspect? Watch the physical architecture of that 3-person grouping. Watch who Savannah gravitates toward and who she manages with more careful distance. Two sisters. 31 days of shared grief. Standing at their mother's memorial. And the space between them does not look like the space between two people carrying the same loss from the same position of complete innocence. Savannah Guthrie is a Harvard Law graduate who has spent her career understanding exactly what images communicate. She knew cameras were present. She chose that arrangement deliberately. Every word, every video, every public appearance since February 1st has been the output of a trained communicator operating under legal and investigative guidance. The memorial was not a private grief moment that cameras happened to catch. It was a public gesture. And she designed it. Every investigator who has analyzed this case has reached the same conclusion: this was a targeted, planned, intelligence-driven operation. Former FBI agent Brianna Fox, reviewing the doorbell camera footage, noted that the suspect approached the house like he owned it, no hesitation, no fear, no scanning for observers. Former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe described the approach as notably lacking in the kind of nervousness you would expect from someone operating in unknown territory. He knew about the camera. He approached it, tested whether knocking it loose was possible, and when that failed, used foliage from a nearby potted plant to cover the lens. He did not bring a tool for this. He improvised. But he was not surprised by the camera's existence. He knew Nancy would be alone. He did not come prepared for a caregiver, a visitor, or a dog. He arrived for one specific target, and he arrived confident that no one else would be there. He knew about her pacemaker. Nancy's Apple Watch, phone, and daily heart medication were all left behind at the house. That is not an oversight, it is a decision. Someone understood that the pacemaker synced to her phone. Someone understood that leaving her medication behind created a biological clock. The pacemaker went silent at 2:28 a.m. Someone planned for that silence. And he knew the routine, not just the details of that one Saturday evening, but the pattern. That Saturdays were family dinner nights. That those were the evenings Nancy traveled. FBI agents are now treating January 11th and January 24th as specific dates of investigative interest, asking neighbors for security camera footage from both dates. 2 Saturdays. The same day of the week as the abduction. 8 days before it and 3 weeks before that. Someone was watching this family on Saturdays. Learning the rhythm of a routine that does not appear in news articles or on social media profiles. A routine that exists only inside the daily life of this family, and inside the knowledge of people close enough to it to have observed it directly. The last time that routine was confirmed and made complete was at a dinner table in Nancy Guthrie's home. On February 7, 2026, 7 days after Nancy was reported missing, Savannah Guthrie sat between Annie and Cameron, looked into a camera, and opened a family video statement with a sentence that has never received the examination it deserves. "We received your message and we understand." 8 words. From a Harvard Law graduate. Delivered in a heavily scripted video prepared under the guidance of law enforcement advisors, according to former CIA officer Tracy Walder. "We received your message." Not, "We are aware that ransom notes have circulated." Not, "We have seen the media reports." Received. Directly. Specifically. A communication was delivered to specific people, and those people are acknowledging it. This matters because only 3 days earlier, on February 4th, former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe had analyzed the first family video and concluded it read like an attempt to establish communication with people who had not yet made real contact. His assessment on February 4th was that no legitimate direct communication had yet been received from whoever took Nancy. 3 days later, Savannah said, "We received your message." Something had arrived. A second note had been sent to a Tucson television station on February 7th. The station's news director described it as containing insider-specific details the sender was using to prove continued identity. And Savannah said, "We understand." Not "we believe." Not "we hope." Understand, a verb that implies active comprehension of something complex. Something that, once you had the full context, made sense in a way that a random demand from an unknown stranger would not. Now watch the three faces in that video when those words are spoken. Savannah delivers them with the precision of a lawyer reviewing a document she approved. Cameron carries the weight of a man processing 7 days of public grief. And Annie, watch Annie specifically. Watch whether that word, understand, lands in her expression the way it would land in the face of someone hearing information for the first time, or in the face of someone for whom it is not new. Behavioral analysis deals in incongruence, the gap between what a moment requires and what a person's body is actually doing. In that February 7th video, 3 siblings share one sentence. It does not settle equally across all 3 of them. 7 details. All confirmed. All pointing in the same direction. Not as individual accusations, each one carries a perfectly innocent explanation standing alone. The car? Forensic processing takes time. The ICAC agent? The shirt is just a shirt. The repeated neighborhood canvases? Standard investigative procedure. A son-in-law driving instead of a daughter? Simply how the evening ended. Individually, each detail fits an innocent frame. But 7 details with innocent individual explanations, all pointing to the same household, all circling the same network of relationships, all feeding into the same portrait of a woman who is carrying specific and pointed knowledge with the discipline of someone trained in both law and journalism, that is no longer coincidence. That is a pattern. And patterns are what criminal investigations are ultimately built on. Genetic material was recovered from inside Nancy Guthrie's home. It does not match Nancy or anyone known to have been in close regular contact with her. A search of CODIS, the FBI's national database of over 19 million offender profiles, returned no match. The contributor has no prior violent felony arrest on record. This is not a career criminal. This is someone with a clean record who lives inside a community, holds a job, has people who know them. Someone who, on paper, looks ordinary. Genetic genealogy is now running, the same technique that identified the Golden State Killer using partial DNA and commercial ancestry databases. It does not require a prior criminal record. It builds outward through family trees until it finds a name. That process is active right now. The Celebrite data has been extracted. The seized vehicle has been processed and not returned. The FBI command post has moved from Tucson to Phoenix, not a retreat, but a transition from evidence collection to analytical convergence. The investigation has moved from gathering to building. Savannah Guthrie, on February 15th, posted a video and said this: "You're not lost or alone, and it is never too late to do the right thing." That sentence is not generic. You do not tell an anonymous criminal that they are not lost. You do not offer a stranger the assurance that redemption is still possible unless you believe, based on something you know about who they are, that they are capable of hearing it. That language is written for someone whose emotional state Savannah can imagine. Someone whose path back she believes still exists. A stranger does not inspire that kind of appeal. A stranger inspires fear, fury, and law enforcement pressure. What Savannah offered was a moral invitation. You only extend that invitation to someone whose connection to the crime runs through a world you recognize. Nancy Ellen Guthrie was born January 27, 1942 in Fort Wright, Kentucky. She lost her husband in 1988 when her children were still young. She raised 3 children in Tucson. She built a life around faith, family, and routine: church on Sundays, family dinner on Saturdays, an Uber to Annie's house because she did not want to be anyone's burden. She went inside. The garage door closed at 9:50 p.m. And then someone who knew exactly how to find her came through the dark and took her. She deserves every question this video asked. She deserves to be found. If you know anything, if you saw something in the Catalina foothills in January or February, if someone you know behaved differently around the 1st of February, if you've heard something you weren't sure was worth reporting, call 1-800-CALL-FBI or submit a tip at tips.fbi.gov. The reward is waiting. The family is waiting. And the window for doing the right thing, as Savannah herself said, has not yet closed. But it is not unlimited.